Welcome to the Minimalist Educator Podcast, where the focus is on a less is more approach to education. Join your hosts, Christine Arnold and Tammy Musiowski, authors of The Minimalist Teacher and Your School Leadership Edit, a minimalist approach to rethinking your school ecosystem, each week as they explore practical ways to simplify your work, sharpen your focus, and amplify what matters most so you can teach and lead with greater clarity, purpose, and joy.
On this week's episode of the podcast, we are joined by Josephine Hunt to talk about student resilience. Her pared-down pointer is advice to look into systematic training for effective teaching or parenting. Josephine Hunt is an educational leader, speaker, and pre-K to 12 educator with more than 20 years of experience in special education, early childhood, MTSS, SEL, and student services. She leads statewide workshops and national presentations on resiliency, digital wellness, and whole child learning, including NGEA Transform, ONNJ Media, and the NJCEC Spring Conference. Josephine is known for her signature framework teaching our students resiliency, which empowers educators and families to support student well-being in a rapidly changing world. She currently teaches in Gloucester Public Schools and is completing advanced leadership work across New Jersey. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Minimalist Educator Podcast. Christine and I are looking forward to having a discussion today with Josephine Hunt, who just dismissed her kids, which is super amazing because she sent them off on their way and is ready to do a podcast with us. And so we admire that dedication to wanting to share the work that she does with students with you, our listeners. Welcome to the show, Josephine.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate that you worked around my schedule. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem at all. You and I just met about a month ago at a conference in New Jersey. And I shouldn't say a month ago because no one knows when this was recorded. So I should say, let's say October 2025. And
Yes.
So we've known each other just about a month. And I was interested in the work that you do. Christine and I, we focus on priorities, purpose, minimalism, and education, and how we can create this sustainable space for educators and students to, just be able to for us to be in a profession long-term and for students to find joy in being taught and learning. And so the work that you do centers around student resilience. And so can you talk a little bit about how you came into that place in your position in education?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in education for a little bit over 22 years. I have my first degree, William Patterson, a bachelor's degree in English literature and elementary ed. And I started teaching right away at 22. And the students were different each year and so forth. As I was teaching in my first year, I went to NYU and got my master's degree in special education. And that gave me like a whole other approach to clinical and just giving much more individualized support per student. So regardless if there's special needs or not, we provide the support and instruction and scaffolding that every student needs. And it really opened up my eyes to like just really differentiating instruction for anyone. And with that, right from there, my principal at the time said to me, I should really go into leadership because I was taking on student teachers and so forth. And she really promoted the Rutgers program for me to start my educational leadership. And I ended up taking 16 credits to become a principal and educational leader. And I saw like how important it is to do the same thing with our teachers, to provide individualized support, to have differentiated growth and so forth. But then my life took a little bit of a turn and I got married and I got 3 daughters where I got most of my learning from because I stayed home and raised my 3 daughters who are 22, 21, and 20 right now. And that was probably the crux of my work because I learned much more with my own children using the practices in that manner. And I noticed really quickly that logical and natural consequences that are related to our behaviors are probably the most effective and minimalist ways to handle just any kind of work that we do. And so I carried that right over into my teaching. I was fortunate enough that I found programs as a parent that was called Systematic Training for Effective Parenting, where the curriculum and the program really focused on like iMessages, natural consequences, logical consequences. Being a good parent versus a responsible parent is a huge discrepancy. Being a good parent, like we want to do things for our kids and alleviate any of their like areas of discomfort, but being a responsible parent also, like, which carried over into education, is allowing our students or our children to work through those natural results that happen or actions that happen, and the effect of that is so much greater than when we take that away. So it's like through discomfort comes a lot of great growth, and it is cumulative, because as our students or children are younger, those areas that they have challenges or discomfort in, that, like, maybe I forgot to do my homework, or having a difficult time with social or peer conflict, like that's all great work that happens at that age. And for it to occur and let that discomfort come with, like with more growth and strategies. We only know how strong we are until we're put in those situations. But if there's a safety net all the time, we don't recognize our abilities. And so I went back to teaching after I had my daughters, and I saw a gigantic change in the education field, where parents are just really trying to help their children too much. And now the teachers are having that as well too. And so if a child forgets his or her homework, the parent will either do it for them or get involved with the social conflict, which is all peer appropriate. And then Jonathan Haidt's work came out with The Anxious Generation, and that really brought more to life. And so where you and I met was for a principal and supervisor association setting. And I just finished my master's degree, my second master's in educational leadership. And that's where this work came up again, that I was asked to speak about helping our students and our children as educators and parents to build resiliency, and how do we do that in schools, and how do we do that at home, and how do we allow our students to just work through their typical things that are happening, or situations that are happening. And in my current role, and just like by working with different districts, I'm finding that a lot of administrators are saying that the HIB reports are just exponential. So students are claiming, a lot of harassment, intimidation, and bullying cases. And so all of this paperwork and all of this energy is being placed into these documents. And once it's, they research it, and, they work through all the different components of it, most of the cases are unfound. And so what we're seeing is that the resilience is really decreasing, because students with regular, social, emotional, and even academic challenges are becoming like, it's the resilience has like really decreased. Like they're not working through those discomforts. And so I'm really just being a part of this program to help out as much as I can, just to like make sure that we're keeping that, in focus.
Wow, that's really impressive. 2 masters, very cool.
Thank you.
I would love to hear a little bit more. I know you told us a little bit already, but I'd love if you could elaborate on that idea of the natural or logical consequences and its connection to building resiliency. I think that would be really, really interesting to hear more about for our listeners.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So what a great program is, it's called STEP, Systematic Training for Effective Parenting. And they also have a program too, it's a curriculum, Systematic Training for Effective Teaching. And the programs or the curriculums really emphasize on the natural and logical consequences. And so if a student is having a challenging time with a word problem or a writing piece, to allow them that discomfort and that time and space to have those like discomfort feelings, or even possibly negative feelings, and not even say like, oh, when I was your age, I felt the same way, or yeah, English really is hard. Rather than saying that, just allowing that natural work to happen. Because in most cases, if we allow people to feel what they feel and kind of talk through what they feel, in many cases they end up just getting to the solution without our intervention. But what seems to be happening is that we're uncomfortable with someone else's discomfort, and we want to come in and save the day, right? As teachers and parents. And so it all comes from great intention. Like, really, I really fully believe that people come with all good intention. And so if I have a parent that comes in who's very upset or angry because my child was bullied at school, or not, someone wasn't nice to him or her, or is feeling some kind of negative feelings, I know that those parents are coming to me with all their best intention. This is their children. This is their heart on their sleeve. Like, the most vulnerable space, right, for you is your child. And we as educators, we go into this field because we want to help people. Like, we really, and I wrote articles on this too. Like, yes, of course we need to get, paid and like have a living from this job. But ultimately, we really get fulfilled with the intrinsic reward of helping others. Like, that really is the core motivation. And so sometimes just that communication where a student or a parent comes in with like a very negative response, to allow that to happen and be comfortable with that discomfort. So, like, if a student forgot his or her homework, rather than providing a punishment of like, that's it, you're going to get a 0, like giving the time and space. Now, okay, when can you finish it? Like having the natural consequences that come with it. If a student does something that's not so appropriate to another student, where it's like not so kind words, try again. What's another way to word it? I think we're too quick to give either reward or punishment rather than a natural consequence. The natural consequence is so much more effective because it stays within the work that it is. So if your student shows you like, oh, look, do you like my paragraph that I wrote? I wrote 5 sentences, how do you like it? So rather than my giving the feedback, I say to that student, like, what do you think of your work? It's your work. I'm your teacher just this year, right? Every year you're going to have a new evaluator. The most important person to feel good about is yourself. The worst person to disappoint is yourself, right? I mean, so it's really important that we teach our students and our children to have an inner compass of how we feel about what we're doing. Because in most cases, if you asked your boss and said, hey, what'd you think of that podcast I did? And if your boss turned around and said to you, like, how do you feel about it? We're our worst critic, right? I mean, so, we are always looking to improve ourselves. And, and that intrinsic motivation is so powerful. It's almost better than getting a raise or something. So when I speak with parents as an educator, when their children come home and they show them like, oh, I got an A or I got a 100 or whatever it is, leave it there. Like, that's the natural consequence. Leave it there. Be proud of their effort. Praise the effort, not the A, not the product. And so, because otherwise, like, we give, oh, look, Mom, I got an A today. Oh, here's a sticker. Look, Mom, I got an A tomorrow, right? Oh, here's $1. Look, Mom, I got an A in 5th grade, right? Oh, here's a toy, right? Look, Mom, you buy a car, a house, let's go to Hawaii, and we take away then like that real beauty of the intrinsic reward of just the work and effort that we did. Like, we're removing it. It's almost like saying like dessert is better than dinner, right? Like, we're putting the value in something that's really not the intrinsic motivator. Like, our dinner is our meat and potatoes and our vitamins and our nutrients, but hurry up, eat your dinner so you can have your ice cream that's going to destroy your immune system. So sometimes we're being the good people, right? And we have all the right intentions, like, truly, I believe that. But if we look a little bit deeper and like just staying in that natural minimalist thinking, right? Like, super easy, like, just stay right there and let that space and time happen. It's amazing. It really is.
Yes, all the yeses there. And I'm having so many thoughts because I'm working with some teachers who are, they're new to the profession and they're trying to externally motivate students with reward systems. And so some of the work that we do together is for them to understand that that's a short term, like it's not going to work long term. So we're talking about natural consequences, which makes sense, right? And versus the external reward system. How do you get teachers to understand that the natural consequence is the best way for students to learn versus I'm going to give you a sticker because you sat in your seat quickly or whatever it is, you know.
And that is what's happening, right? And like I said, I really wholeheartedly believe that, parents and teachers are all in this to like for the best intention. And they want to provide like those kinds of like rewards, like to continue the positive behaviors. So because I'm a coach as well, I'm an instructional coach and a teacher mentor as well. And through those programs, I've just learned a tremendous amount of like not only who I am as an educator, but also how to like help and support other people in the education field. And what we talk about is in most cases, I sit and talk with them and let them come to that themselves. I'll say like, well, how do you feel about your disciplinary chart or your behavior plan or your reward system? Like, how do you feel about it? And initially they're like, oh, it's great. Like the kids do what they, like they want to earn stickers, like they want to earn coins, they want to earn whatever it is that they're earning. Now, when I speak about this, I'm not saying about like really like, because students who are on the spectrum, it's a different thinking. It depends on the student, right? And it depends on the school and the program. But I'm talking about your everyday public schools, right? Where the students are really intrinsically motivated by their own work. And so how do we get there? Like I said, I talk with the teachers and have them talk through. And then they'll say like, as they're kind of like describing like how it works. And after I give it some time and space, in most cases, the teachers say like, I have to kind of come up with something else in a couple of weeks because they kind of get bored of this reward, and she's, and they're like, they're frustrated because the teachers, right? Because they are putting so much time and emphasis on these like extrinsic rewards rather than best practices in teaching, right? Like, so where we really should be spending our energy and time is like how to best meet our students' needs in the holistic domain, right? Like academic, cognitive, social, emotional. And if we just stay, right, like at that like really basic level, if your students are feeling good about the right decisions they're making, sitting smartly on the carpet, having looking eyes, listening ears, time to listen, raise your hand, like rather than, calling out, staying right at those behaviors rather than giving that an extrinsic reward really moves the needle so much more. And students, we as humans want to do our best, right? Like nobody wants to be a bad kid. Like nobody not wants to get like intrinsic motivation. And so we can harvest that. It's really like what we can do as educators is so powerful. And then even like we can help with parents too. Like I send home videos of myself. Like I'm not really, it's like kind of cheesy, but there's sometimes like I know that the small conversations that I'm having at the door or the emails are only going so far. So when I send home video messages to my parents, to my students' parents about what we do and the why behind it, it is tremendous because then I can see that work being done at home too. So that parent education is a big piece of it. So I'm a big proponent too of professional learning or professional development. I think, teachers want to do better and they recognize when their practices are effective, like intrinsically effective. And so with that professional learning, we can just better ourselves with better tools and more effective tools.
It might be unpopular right now, Josephine, but I've got to ask, when we're talking about this, intrinsic, extrinsic motivation, we are in a world where the digital life of our kids is really creating a very different set of rewards for our kids. I think it's John Spencer who describes it as a dopamine casino when they're online, just this constant feed of that sort of rewards in that way. Can you speak a little bit about how you've seen maybe a shift with the online world that kids are involved in and what impact that might be having on that motivation piece for our students?
It's tremendous. That has become, as soon as it was around 2010 when our computers became part of our pockets. And so we could carry around a phone. And with, children that are under the age of 25, right, that I hate to say children because they are adults at 18, but really our brains are not fully developed, right, until 25 is like the generalized age. The dysregulation that's happening is just exponential. any kind of research that you read about, like through Jonathan Haidt's work, as well as like Tom Kirsting's work, there's so many authors that really speak to the data that shows that children under the ages of 18 are having high, like the percentages of like suicide thoughts and hopelessness and depression and anxiety with just typical events that are happening in life. Whereas before 2010, the numbers were exponentially lower. And so that's very alarming to me that this piece has really increased all of these like negative behaviors and like emotional unwellness or illness per se. And so we have to be, as parents and educators, we have to be very mindful of that. Like you said, like the dopamine is just so dysregulated. Of course we need dopamine, like we get it from, like I said, like those intrinsic rewards. But when it's those extrinsic rewards, like, well, why didn't this person like my post? And we agonize on like not one person who didn't like our post or whatever it is. Like it's really like, it really takes you down, and sometimes we don't even recognize like that cumulative like negative effect that's happening. And so as parents and educators, we have to really be mindful and decrease as much as we can that screen time, as well as those dopamine hits that are happening in an unnatural way. And so there are a lot of great movements that are happening. I'm so proud of parents that are taking these stances, because it's really hard, like when the majority is giving their kids a phone, in fourth grade and what have you, because, we have to track where their bodies are or make sure that they're safe, or, we functioned without phones. Like we made it around. I mean, we're also telling our kids too, that we don't trust that you can get around safely when we do that too. Like and I know that's not what we're meaning to say as teachers or parents, that we don't trust our kids or that we don't believe that they're less smart or safe enough to do that. But those messages are really indirect. And so we have to be very mindful when we say like, well, I'm going to put a tracker on you because I want to make sure that, you're at the space that you said you are. And, because I want to make sure you're getting there safe, like providing them the tools or telling them to like how they're asking them, how are you going to get there? What are you going to do? Like, giving them that time and space to just do like typically, developmentally appropriate behaviors is so important, and to decrease the screen time. So the movement I was talking about is wait till the 8th. There's a lot of movements that are happening, at least in New Jersey, that parents are waiting until 8th grade to give their kids a phone, meaning like the ones with all the like social media, like TikTok and all that stuff. So I'm so proud of that, because it takes a lot of courage to do that. And sometimes you just need like, one person to get it started, and showing like a lot of times it comes from like, the district taking on with the PTO, showing the movie Screenagers. And that like stirs up a lot of conversation, because it's when you see that it's research and data and that these numbers are true, you start picking it up on your own kids too, because sometimes we may not see it. But once we have like these educational experiences where information comes in, we really then can say like, oh my gosh, I think this is happening to my child too. What can I do to help this, to make sure my child or student is more emotionally well?
Yeah. When, think about when we were growing up, right? Life just felt so simple. Like there was no, like you just went out for your bike rides or went for your walk and gathered up with your friends. And there was none of this other worry happening. And I've heard that same movement happening in places like Maine. I think it is. Parents are they're getting landlines again so that kids have that experience, which is kind of cool. Just like simplify things, right? So Josephine, we could, as always, our time flies by, I guess. Wrapping up our conversation, is there one pared down pointer that you would offer to educators or parents or students even that you want to leave for people to think about?
I would love for them to look into the systematic training for effective teaching or systematic training for effective parenting. The curriculum and program I have nothing to do with. I just happen to be lucky to get the knowledge of that. And then I trained myself in it and I have implemented it. And I find it to be very eye-opening and effective. And I've been practicing it for over 2 decades. And so if I could educate other educators, that would be a direction that I would love for them to, look into, because it will absolutely help the intrinsic motivation.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Josephine, for your time and joining us as soon as your kids left your classroom. We definitely appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
This episode is sponsored by Plan Z Education Services, supporting educators with forward-thinking professional learning that puts both student impact and teacher wellness at the centre. Driven by a vision to teach less, impact more, they help educators find purpose, prioritise what matters, and simplify their practice. Learn more at planzeducation.com.
Thank you for listening to the Minimalist Educator Podcast. Join Christine and Tammy and guests again next time for more conversations about how to simplify and clarify the responsibilities and tasks in your role. If today's episode helped you rethink, reimagine, reduce, or realign something in your practice, share it in a comment or with a colleague. For resources and updates, visit planzeducation.com and subscribe to receive weekly emails. Until next time, keep it simple and stay intentional.